All right, welcome. Today, we are diving deep into your mind's hidden shortcuts. You know, those invisible scripts that are running in the background, influencing pretty much everything you do, from what you buy to who you trust. Let's get right into it.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Do you always make perfectly rational decisions? Think about the last big choice you had to make. Were you 100% logical, weighing all the pros and cons? Or did a gut feeling, kind of nudge you in one direction? The truth is, our brains are hardwired for shortcuts, and that's not always a good thing.
And this is what we call a cognitive bias. You can think of it like a glitch in our mental software. It's not that our brains are broken, they're just trying to be efficient. But this efficiency can lead to systematic errors in thinking that affect our judgment every single day. So let's break down some of the most common ones.
First up, we've got the biases that kick in when our brain is on autopilot. This is all about those snap judgments, the ones that can so easily trip us up when we're not paying close attention. Our thinking is incredibly sensitive to timing. Take the anchoring bias. The very first piece of information you get tends to stick in your head and anchor your judgment. You see a car listed for $20,000, and suddenly paying $15,000 feels like an amazing deal, even if the car is only worth $12,000. On the flip side, you've got recency bias, where we give the most weight to the last thing we heard, like a dramatic news story breaking right before an election that ends up swaying your vote.
It's not just timing that gets us. It's also what's easy to remember and how it's presented. The availability heuristic is why we overestimate dramatic, easily recalled events. We tend to fear plane crashes way more than car accidents, right? Not because they're more common, but because they get so much media coverage. And then there's the framing effect, which is pure marketing genius. 95% fat-free sounds way healthier than contains 5% fat, doesn't it? But it's the exact same product.
Our brains are also notoriously bad with stats. That's where survivorship bias comes in. We focus only on the winners. We hear about the billionaire college dropouts and think, hey, I can do that, but we completely ignore the millions who tried the same thing and failed. And then there's the gambler's fallacy, which convinces us that past events affect future odds. You flip a coin and get heads 5 times in a row, you just feel like tails is due next, right? Well, nope, the odds are still 50-50. So, if our brains are wired to think fast, they're also wired to be protective, specifically of what we already believe. This next set of biases are like the mind's personal bodyguards, designed to keep our worldview safe and sound, even when faced with evidence that says we're wrong.
And this is a really powerful 1-2 punch. First, you have confirmation bias. This is when you actively go looking for proof that you're right. Think about only reading news sources that echo your own political views. But belief perseverance is its incredibly stubborn cousin. That's when you're shown cold, hard evidence that your belief is wrong, and you just double down. You just refuse to change your mind.
These mental defenses also make us distort the past and totally ignore the present. Hindsight bias is that classic "I knew it all along" feeling you get after a big game or an election. Looking back, the outcome seems so obvious. And the ostrich effect? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when we willfully bury our heads in the sand, like refusing to check your bank account after a big weekend.
Our brains are also basically Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones. That's negativity bias. Think about it. You can get 10 compliments and 1 tiny criticism in a day. Which one are you replaying in your head at 3 a.m.? Yeah, the criticism. And then there's cognitive dissonance. That's that deeply uncomfortable feeling you get when your actions don't line up with your beliefs, like a smoker who knows it's bad for them. To ease that tension, their brain comes up with rationalizations, like, hey, it helps me deal with stress.
Okay, this next section is all about perception, how we see ourselves and how we see everybody else. And, spoiler alert, we are not exactly fair and balanced judges.
We really suffer from some misplaced confidence. The overconfidence bias is why almost everyone thinks they're an above-average driver, which is, statistically impossible. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is a really fascinating twist on this. It's when the people who know the least about a subject are often the most confident that they're experts. You see this all the time online, don't you?
And our flawed judgments about others can be incredibly harsh. With the fundamental attribution error, we tend to blame someone's character instead of their situation. We see someone struggling, and our first thought might be that they're lazy, instead of considering the challenges they're facing. This ties right into the just world hypothesis, this comforting but really dangerous belief that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. It leads directly to blaming victims for their own misfortune.
So our reality gets warped in both directions. We're overly rosy about our future and overly self-conscious about our present. Optimism bias is that classic "it won't happen to me" feeling that lets us text while driving or ignore health warnings. At the exact same time, the spotlight effect gives us that crippling anxiety that everyone is staring at that tiny stain on our shirt when, in reality, almost nobody has even noticed.
All right, for our final section, let's look at how our thinking completely changes the moment we're part of a crowd. We are social animals through and through, and that powerful instinct can create some really interesting cognitive biases.
Being in a group can lead us astray in a couple of key ways. The bandwagon effect is basically herd mentality. You start believing something or doing something just because it seems like everyone else is. Think of a viral challenge. Groupthink is a little more subtle. This happens inside a team when everyone agrees on a bad idea just because nobody wants to be the one to rock the boat. Keeping the peace becomes more important than making a good decision.
Our social instincts also create this deep divide between us and them. The false consensus effect makes us assume everyone in the world thinks just like we do. We project our own little social bubble onto the entire population. And then there's in-group bias, where we actively favor people who are part of our group, our department at work, our favorite sports team, and we treat outsiders with suspicion or less fairness.
And let's finish with two really powerful forces. The halo effect is when one good quality creates this glow that makes everything else seem better. We see an attractive person and we just assume they're also smart and kind. It's why celebrity endorsements work so well. And finally, the status quo bias. This is our brain's deep, deep love of the familiar. We often resist change, not because the new idea is bad, but simply because it's, well, new.
So, there you have it. A lightning-fast tour of 24 different glitches in our human thinking. Whew. But here's the thing. Just knowing that they exist, just being aware of them, is the first massive step to spotting them in ourselves and in the world around us. Which leaves us with one final big question to think about. Now that you're aware, what are you going to do about it?